Ladies and gentlemen, we're back again with Duty Honor Real Estate with episode 13. And this one's a special one. We usually have our American heroes, but this time we're taking it abroad to Israel. Welcome, Joe Brikman. Thank you. Now let's get right.
Do the handshake.
Let's do it again. Let's do it real good. Now let's get right into it because you're obviously a special guest, international, and let's just get right into it. What motivated you to enlist in the Israeli Defense Forces?
That's a great question. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be here. Really excited for what we have going on tomorrow. A big thing that motivated me to enlist in the IDF, I come from a family that has military background. My grandfather, who I was actually born on his 50th birthday, he served over 30 years in the American Army. He retired as a full-bird colonel. He did multiple tours, Iraq, Afghanistan. He was the first responder at 9/11. Very, very, very big. In terms of my grandmother knows what it's like. My mom, my aunts, uncles all know what it's like. So when I was at a point in my life that I was trying to figure out who I was. And I was trying to discover all of that. I'd come up on success after a bunch of things that didn't work out. And it was really nice to be in a position that I didn't have to worry about my life. But at the same time, I was looking more for a search of meaning. And something about enlisting into an army that I would probably end up getting rank fairly quickly. My grandfather's been very instrumental in a lot of initiatives to help people of the faith in the Army. He's brought kosher MREs. He was the one who brought that into the Army. He's been responsible for placing a lot of different types of chaplains and specialized support. He's part of a big he founded and is part of a big organization that does a lot of that stuff. So I was at a point in my own personal life where I didn't really want any of that. So I wanted to go create something of myself. And it was by divine providence that I was in Israel at a time that there was, some conflicts that were coming and happening. And I remember very clearly there was a stabbing attack that took place around the corner from this place that I was staying at. And I was going to only stay there for a couple of days. I ended up staying there for a little bit of a longer time. And I looked at myself and I was like, okay, if there's ever going to be a time that it's ever going to work, it would be now. Because most people, when they draft or they join in the Israeli army, they're usually 18, 19 years old or a little younger. I was 21 at the time, and I had already started establishing myself pretty significantly online in the businesses that I was doing at the time. So it kind of really came from left field. But at the same time, I really wanted to go on that journey. Something inside of me was pushing me to go on that journey. And, I had checked off boxes in my life in terms of what I can do when it comes to business, what I can do when it comes to helping people, what I can do when it comes to establishing. But when it comes to looking in the mirror and seeing the way that I was looking back at me, I felt like I had to experience some sort of physical challenge that would really push me to my limits, that would give me that confidence to be able to look at anything that may come my way and be able to figure it out.
One thing you hit on is about lineage, and that's a big deal in the military. And it's really cool to see that transcend to other militaries, especially in our world. And one, thanks for your grandfather, right, who served and really set a lot of precedents in our U.S. military. So that's amazing. And you hit on something else that I think is pretty near and dear to all military people who serve, is that they obviously they have a purpose, and usually that purpose is kind of, I think, a catalyst with some sort of change. They want some sort of change to reach a purpose. And so it's really cool to hear that you look in the mirror and you're like, no, I want to challenge myself. I want to have something to my name. And really you could see how you want to connect that past, but you also want it for yourself. So I think that is really original. Now, you sign up, you go to as a paratrooper, I think it is.
Yeah, so it's not, there was prep to get there. You got to realize, like, now, like, I'm in shape. I'm proud of what I've been able to build. I coach other people in fitness, and I do a lot of things that push towards leading a healthy lifestyle. But the way that I was growing up, and also genetically, I've been blessed to always be able to enjoy food for an extended duration of time. It would, like, literally sit in my body and just hang out there. So I was overweight. I mean, I ended up losing about 65 pounds from when I actually joined the Army until literally the 8 weeks of basic training. So I wasn't necessarily cut out, no pun intended, for this thing that I was enlisting to. But the Army has a rule that if you don't quit, we will not kick you out, right? If you complete the mission, you complete what you need to do, then you're the only person who can essentially quit throughout, that period. So I decided that I was going to enlist. I was in Israel, and I started sharing sort of this vision with people. A lot of people were laughing at me. They were like, dude, there's no way. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Like, here we go, right? So I found out about this pre-training program that was 6 weeks long, where they literally treat you like trash. And I went through that program, and I completed that program. And completing that program essentially gave me the green light to be able to skip the hazing process from the Army itself and go straight into a tryout. So I had the ability to go and try out, and it was 16 hours of, they gave us an address, they told us where to be, we all kind of got up on a bus. Just last week, the Army released that there were 6 hostages who, that they found their bodies. So Ori Danino, who is one of those people, he actually came on that bus with me. And we went together to this tryout. And let me just say that the way that they taught us how to do this was they taught us to look at a watch and set a timer, right? And just work the time backwards. So that's how I got through it because there really was no other way. I had dirt and mud coming out of places I didn't even know existed in my body, and there was blood coming out of my nose. And in the middle, they like, we were running back and forth. We had to do these 100-meter like runs, and we were doing like 20 of them. And the guy was getting a kick out of it. He came over to me, like, as I was running, I was like maybe like 30, 40 feet behind everybody, like consistently. And I remember this, like, my number was 22, and I couldn't forget it because I was 21. So there was no way that I was forgetting that number because I just didn't, there was so much happening. And I kept, like, the rule was when you got back, you'd have to scream your number, and they would check a thing next to you like that nobody can cheat. And when I got there at the end, he was like, okay, you're last. And I was in my head, I'm like, okay, well, next time let me try to be the second to last guy, right? And I couldn't do it. My body couldn't do it. So I'm running behind these people, and I'm like literally falling apart. Like, you start with a white shirt, right? And like my shirt was like many different colors besides for white. And I scream my number 22, and he goes, yeah, you're already established as you're the last, right? So like that was the sort of way that I worked my way through that, to where I was like, okay, you know what? If I'm going to be the last, let me at least make it count. Right? So instead of falling behind, where a lot of people, when they start telling you, okay, you're last, I'm like, okay, you know what? So what happens if instead of 4 seconds at the end, I come in 6 seconds, I come in 10 seconds? They start seeing that mindset. And that's really where I started. I realized that this is going to be an uphill battle because I have a really, really thick American accent. I barely understood the language at the time. Nobody there wanted me there. Okay? Nobody wanted me there. And it was kind of like, well, you know what? I kind of committed to this. I already have like what would be the equivalent of a DOD number. My passport was already given into the Army. I already have that visa, my passport. Like, I'm not going anywhere. So what am I going to do other than start saying, you know what? Instead of looking for that light that's going to happen wherever I end up, I decided I was going to start becoming that. And going through that interview process, they looked me dead in the eye at the end, like we're doing these like personal interviews, and they're like, what happens if you don't make it? I was like, well, I'm packing up and I'm going home. They're like, but there's many other jobs, there's many other things that and I was like, listen, I came here to be a paratrooper because my grandfather's a paratrooper in the American Army, and I'm going to carry on that legacy. So either I'm going to do that or I'm not going to. And then it just really started all sort of morphing together in terms of like, okay, they're not happy I'm here. They don't want me here. Maybe it's just sort of the way that the Army works in the beginning, is they only really want the people who can commit and who really want to be here. And I was able to dig deep, and I was able to really start finding that and start calling myself on my own bullshit. if we can say that on this podcast.
No, of course, of course. So I love it because it gives you like experiencing what you're going through. Like I can feel it, and it's really cool to see that because it's almost like an acceleration program to serve. And in America, obviously, you have to go through basic training, then you have to go to advanced training, and then you finally get to your unit. And it's really cool to see that perspective from a country who's like, you want to serve? Well, here's your path to that service. And it's really cool to see that and how you went through it because, I mean, it's an experience for you. I like how you were talking about like the do not quit because obviously they want people who are committed, but you were committed because you were like, I'm only going to be a paratrooper. And again, I love how you take that lineage of your family in the American military and how you're going to come here for the Israeli force. And it's really awesome. And just in that experience, and obviously you had to go to war, you had to go to that conflict. And if you could share anything, but what in that experience, in your military experience, because you were already successful in real estate and you were already grown, but I imagine when you finished that tour, that probably amplified your future or the path that you were on. Could you talk about that, of how that helped you?
Sure. Let me just start by saying that flying back on October 7th of last year was probably the dumbest thing I could have done as a real estate professional. And it was probably the dumbest thing I could have done as a business professional. It's probably the dumbest thing I could have done from anybody's perspective, because from the way that people looked at me, I made it. I'm killing it. I'm literally building, we're doing what we're doing. And flying back there meant I was going to be in an active war zone. I don't know if I'm coming back. And it was essentially what people would consider suicide of building a business. And I just, like, I'm grateful that I've been able to future-proof my business to where we have the modern day angels, that's our back-end support system that can essentially handle all of our operations. So throughout building out a lot of my company, what I've been able to do is I've been able to separate a lot of the money-making activities versus the industry and the necessities and the back-end fulfillment activities that are necessary in order to be able to actually continue running a proper real estate business. So by being able to split those two things apart, and then by also being able to have created our own training programs, mentorship programs, I've written quite a few different books on real estate, on sales and marketing, and being able to create that sort of network, it gave me the opportunity to have a platform to stand on, to be able to ship on out. So not only that, it gave me funds. I mean, I spent over $300,000 in terms of bringing, equipment. I like to joke and say that the American Army's got $100 million $100 million military budget. The Israeli Army has about a $100 budget. And a lot of the gear and a lot of the stuff that we brought back, were directly taken from funds that I was going to use for investment.
Wow.
Like, we're directly taken from credit card lines and credit lines and stuff that I built, because as far as I was concerned, I realized they were killing my friends. They were, they kidnapped Ori. They kidnapped 3-4 other people that I knew on a personal level, right? They killed friends of mine that were at this event. As far as I'm concerned, anything and everything that I've ever done in the Israeli Army led up to this moment, to a point where they reached out to me and they said, Joe, you're qualified. We need you. Get on the next plane and get out. And I took the last flight out from Miami on Saturday night. It was on a Jewish holiday. And, my family's super religious. So in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to call on Saturday afternoon and let my mom know for two reasons. One, because my mom probably would have booked the flight and ran to Miami and physically restrained me from flying back. And also at the same time, I didn't really see much of a need to panic. Like, I was going as far as I was concerned. So what's the difference if I call her now or if I call her at 11:55 on the runway, sitting inside the plane once the door is already closed? So I remembered that, my grandfather had this, anybody who's been in the Army from the 70s, 80s, 90s, they had this recording voicemail box that somebody can call you and leave a recording. You can always play it back. Like that, if you missed the message, you can go back and record it. So my grandfather still has that in his house. So I remember that. So I figured, what are the off chances that I can call and I can tell somebody, because it was a Jewish holiday and everybody's up and there's a lot of things happening, and I kept calling. And after like the sixth time I called, I was like, okay, someone's got to be there, right? It's either my grandmother screaming, why do we leave the phone plugged in over the holiday? Or my grandfather being like, yo, are they really calling me back? Like, what's going on? So I left the message. I was like, hey, if you can hear this, I need you to run over to my mom's house because I'm sitting on a plane and I need to talk to her before the plane takes off. The plane was supposed to take off at 12:10. So I said it like the message 2 more times. I waited like 5 minutes, and then I called my mom, and my mom was sleeping. Like, it's after like 7 days of holidays, and Jewish moms are like not recognized for how much they put in to just making things happen. Like what happens on Christmas and what happens on Thanksgiving, Jewish moms do every single Saturday, and then over the holidays, it's every single day, 3 times a day. Like, it's crazy. So she's resting up, and I hear her. She picks up the phone. She goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's my mom, right? Of course she's gonna ask if I'm okay." And I'm like, "Mom, I'm more than okay. I'm fine. I don't know if you heard what's happening in Israel, but I'm on a plane and I'm flying back." And you got to remember, they've been disconnected for the last day and a half, so they have no idea what's going on, right? And my mom answering the phone, she only answered the phone because it was me, and only because I called 50 times. And let's just say my mom still worries about me, right? So, Mom, I love you if you're listening to this. So, like, I called a bunch of times. She picks up the phone, and I was just like, listen, like, I'll call you when I can. Now, I'm assuming that as soon as I say that, she hangs up, she Googles what's happening in Israel, right? Because then I just got an incessant amount of phone calls. Like, she was just trying to call me back and call me back and call me back and call me back. And I just, like, the plane started taxiing and we took off. And it was me. It was my friend Tzvi, my friend Mendel. Tzvi's actually on his way back, finally, thankfully. Last I spoke to him, he was in England earlier today. He's on his way back. And we were sitting there in economy class, right? Because we had to finesse our way onto the plane. And dude, we came there with so much gear, it was crazy. And I looked at the stewardess and I was like, "Hey, can we upgrade to first class?" And they were like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because there's no one on this plane and we don't know if we're coming back. Like, we may as well enjoy it." So I pulled out my card, I upgraded my 3 friends, and we landed back in Israel, and we were literally convinced that we were going to land and we were going to like start fighting. And that's kind of what happened. We landed, our people came pick us up. I went with Tzvi to his base until I was able to get to my base. All of my people were already mobilized, so like there was just a lot of shortage of weapons and ammo and gear. Like, the only way that I was able to meet back up with my people was because I literally came fully kitted out. Like, I was American kitted out, and I came with 15 more kits, so like we were ready to roll, right? Guys, in case you're wondering, a fully built out Israeli kit is $9,400. It's a lot of money, okay? So we pulled up with a bunch of them. And like, now I'm looking for my people, right? And they were already deployed, because what happened was Israel called everybody up, and there was just such a crazy influx. There's about 160, 170,000. And again, don't quote me on these numbers. But in my time when I was there was between 160, 175,000 reserve like troops that were available. Over 300,000 people pulled back up to like the centers to like kit up and everything. So the gear that they were offering us by the time we got there, which was October 8th in the morning, right? Because we left October 7th at night, and Israel's 7 hours ahead. They had, like, the vest I was looking at, the stamp on it was 1997, right? Which was like a year after I was born. So I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm not going to use this. I'm going to stick with my kit. And then I had to shack up with other groups of people who either had Hummers or had access to a helicopter to be able to go in and get with my people. Throughout that time, I found out that some of the people in my upper chain of command, were killed in the process of just trying to clear out certain areas literally within Israel. See, a lot of people don't realize that the whole attack happened. They flew over the borders, right? And they just started killing people, everybody. They killed Muslims. They killed, 13 different nationalities, I think, maybe more. That went through all this. I don't brush myself up on the facts. Like, I'm not ready here to hit you with all those facts, right? Like, I don't engage in those conversations. But it's more of like just so much murder and so much death. When I did a run back, I came here. I raised like $1.5 million. We bought a bunch of gear, and then we chartered they gave us a plane. It was chartered to fly back. It was a cargo plane. I flew back with these cameras that we use the cameras to find pieces of bodies. Yeah, they were using the Surfside Towers in Miami, like when those towers collapsed and 98 people were killed, and they were looking for pieces of bodies in rubble. And this was in civilian use. So imagine we're trying to use civilian grade equipment in a military sort of operation that just there's nothing there. Nothing could prepare you for something like this. And just finding pieces of bodies and collecting, I 2 days in, I was like, guys, like, I'm good here. Like, I'm out, right? And I was able to switch out from where I was to a place in Judea and Samaria, which was a very like dangerous place. It's completely filled with just a mix of all different cultures and all different agendas, and it's kind of like the Wild West. So that got dangerous. The day after I moved places, the place that I was actually staying at, literally where the last station I was defending, got blown up. So I mean, what exactly do you want to hear? Because there's so much, to talk about. I think maybe to highlight more along the lines of what we're talking about over here, going back there as somebody who's been trained, who hasn't walked away from those disciplines all throughout the time, in between the time that I was active duty to the time that I had the honor of being in the reserves, was definitely something that made me capable of being able to fulfill and follow through on that mission, because it required agility, it required fitness, it required the ability to think quickly, quick reaction, still being able to fight hand to hand. This tattoo that I have, it's a full sleeve, and it's actually my commemoration of, well, it's a half full sleeve for the real diehards of the tattoos people. And there's the word unstoppable in it, which essentially is this whole journey. There's a money sign inside of it, because although to most people it does look like we committed career suicide by going back, I actually sold $10 million over the 44 days that I was there, and I basically had no access to a phone. I couldn't tell you what the inside of those properties looked like, but I can tell you we sold them and we got paid. And so that's the money sign inside of that. There's the eagle, which is the American eagle. That really an eagle, the way an eagle works is when it feels like it's getting weak, it actually flies away and isolates itself, and it tears its beak off until a new beak grows back, and that's when the eagle becomes the bald eagle and really can fly high. Eagles carry their kids in their wings and not in their legs, because no one else can fly higher than them. Inside of that, here's the right wing, and then inside of the left wing is the Israeli flag. These marks over here are the commemorations of the kill shots that I was able to take for people who were trying to kill me. Israel has a very strict rule of engagement when it comes to how you're allowed to fire and when you're allowed to fire, and the only time that you're allowed to actually take a kill shot is when somebody has the means, the ability, and actual capability to kill you, which means that someone had to be standing within a very minimal radius of me with a gun actually pointed directly at me. And that's that. And then inside of that, you have a snake, which is a viper. The viper is the symbol of our battalion, which is Battalion 202, which is right here. And then inside over here is, the word that literally will sum my life up in one word, which is the word growth. And then up over here, you have a lion, which is the Lion of Judah. And then up on top again, you have another viper. This viper actually has its teeth extended, and this teeth are facing in. I'm not sure the type of audience here. I'm not going to go take my shirt off to show you guys, but the teeth are facing inwards, right? Which are here also to remind me that if ever at any time I want to lash out and I want to take that little bite, first look inside and look, is it a me problem, or is it the person, the organization, the structure that I'm actually looking at? So then I have the number 333, which is my birth time and angel numbers and all that stuff. My dad's in heaven, and I do believe that literally every step along this process he's been guiding me through somehow. I have a photo when I was on the top of a mountain. On this mountain basically separated an Arab village and a Jewish village, and the job was basically to make sure that nobody got through on both sides, because every night people were sneaking in. They were literally just trying to kill people. And I looked up and I saw a cloud, and again, it may have been the lack of sleep, or it may have actually been that way, but there was a cloud up there that was sort of shaped out as an angel. And I took a photo of it, and I don't know what the photo was of, but I could have sworn I saw it there. And you know, that was the time that I had my phone. This whole tattoo idea came up when I didn't have my phone on me at all. Like, you know, we were in a combat zone. So from all of that, I'll tell you that the ability to be able to build on past experiences, to give you the opportunity to shape who you are today, a lot of people, they call it, you know, post. And, you know, you can't say that word out loud because you'll get shadow banned, and you know, it's not a sexy word to say. But anybody who's dealing with anything that's post something, they don't realize that the real strength is being able to dig back in to that environment that you were in, and looking back as to who you were and how you were operating then, and just figure out a way to be able to recreate that motivation, that fire that you had then, right here, right now, today. And it sounds very easy, but it's not. And anybody who's dealing with it or has dealt with it or will go through it at any point, because it's not something that just comes and goes or something that has a timeline or a date of expiration. It's one of those things that the most healing thing that I've done was be able to bridge that gap, was being able to say, you know what, my team, our team, this is how we're going to run, right? In the IDF, the way that things are set up is you have anywhere from 4 to 7 support soldiers for every 1 combat soldier. So the way we're structured is we have the 1 agent, right, who's out there selling. And then on the back end, we have all these different people who have very specific, very clearly outlined processes and standard operating procedures, which give them the clarity that they need to be able to operate. So to summarize everything I kind of just said, because I just took you guys for a ride, the real way to be able to handle the things is to not really care about what other people's perspective is. And it's to be able to make sure that whatever system you're going to stand on, whatever process you're going to stand on, whatever you're going to enlist with, you're going to fully commit to a point that when you get called up and you have the chance now to perform, you don't miss because the guy who was supposed to bring 2, what do they call them in English? The front part of the gun, that, like the barrel, right? The guy who was supposed to bring the replacement barrel for the heavy machine guns didn't bring the second one. So now you're smoking. So now you can't keep shooting anymore, right? Like that's where people fall, because they get too comfortable in that. So when you give yourself the permission to continue calling yourself on those things, to continue pushing yourself to grow, then yeah, you can stop whatever you're doing and go back and fight for something that you very strongly believe in and are willing to give your life up for. Because you know that all of the people who are relying on you every single day still have what to show up for.
I'll tell you this, it's halftime because that was a lot. And I have to say thank you, because in this podcast, I think you're the first to really narrate that experience and to really show what you went through. And a couple things that I gathered from that journey that you took us through is one, we call it a forcing function. And you really put yourself in a situation where you'll force these systems to be in place so you can go and serve another purpose. And I think that's really big to a lot of real estate professionals, is like, we want to go and do more and do this and do that. But we got to understand, you got to put things in place so that you can go do that mission.
That's the difference. So yes, just acknowledge that, but also that's the difference between the military and real life. You can't force things, right? You can't force something in place. In the military, you can. In the military, you're a cog inside of a wheel that is sitting in storage that will come out in the event that we run out of tires. Like, that's how you feel, right? Like, hurry up and wait, right? Because your time isn't worth nothing anyways. Like, that's what happens in the Army. Whereas over here, you can't force those systems, right? Because if you force them, they're going to blow up. What you need to do instead is you need to flip that force into non-negotiable, which means when you come back here and you recognize that you have a certain ability, agility, and strength that most people do not have and will never have the opportunity to experience. Now, instead of coming back and, civilians call it a superiority complex, right? But it's not really a superiority complex, because when you go through the military, you understand how having to be so rigid can be the difference between life and death, right? Because opening up a corner when you're clearing a house and you're literally leaning against the wall or you're out by a centimeter, it's the difference of getting hit or not getting hit. But when you come back to the real civilian, like to the civilian world, right? What you need to remember and you need to realize is that most people, blunt force trauma doesn't work for them. It doesn't. Not only that, it creates anxiety and it creates stress and it creates the trauma and so many different things and that people need to do in order to decompress, right? The number one trigger word in today's day is just I'm uncomfortable, right? And not to laugh at people who are uncomfortable. I mean, obviously there's boundaries and stuff, but you got to realize that when you're coming back into a civilian world, you have to create non-negotiables, which means that you are now going to have certain standards, certain things that to you, this is what you're going to choose to engage with, and this is what you're going to look at somebody dead in the eye and say, hey, listen, I really appreciate everything that you're about, and I respect you, and I appreciate you, and if anybody ever mentions your name inside of a room, I can promise you that I will recommend you. However, you and me, we're just not on the same page. Right? You and me, it's not going to work because I work a certain way. I know the way I work, and I don't want to do you a disservice by trying to force this into place. I want to be able to give you the opportunity. Take all the tools. Take everything you need. But I can't do this on a long term because, hey, it's not you, it's me, right? These are the standards that I have, and I am not willing to compromise on those standards in order to make other people happy. So instead of forcing something in place, it's saying, hey, listen, this is how I work, this is how I run, and I'm okay with doing this on my own.
No, I love it. And, one, I got to commend you for bracing that post-traumatic stress disorder that's out there and really telling people to embrace it. It's something that it allows you to really affirm the benefits of the struggle you went through. So I think that's really awesome. I love how you characterize it as, non-negotiables, really creating that standard from what you experience. So that's incredible. So we have a lot of that preface, a lot of that context that from my experience with you, because when we met, it wasn't too long ago that you left that operational environment. And I could still feel that drive, and I still feel it now. So, now we're in the second half of this podcast because I think you really put it out there to the world that there's other people who also serve. And now you're serving here, the American dream. You're in Miami. And from when I first met you, all I've seen is success after success with modern day team, modern day management, J squared. Now real luxury, real brokerage. Talk about how did this all unfold? Because now you're back. You got this new kind of maybe revived sense of purpose or appreciation for life. How did you close over $240 million in sales?
That's a great question. So everything that I've built was all built out of necessity. I got into real estate when I came back, for the first time, and it was something that I was really passionate about. I mean, I when I finished the Army, I had the ability to sell off a home security company that I built, and I was sitting on equity. So this was right in the beginning of COVID, and I figured, hey, like I'm down in Florida now, let's pick up some property. No one took me seriously because I was 24, right, and I just was rolling around doing what I was doing. So I was like, you know what, screw it. Like, I'm going to go find a property. I found the property and I bought it. And then I was like, yo, how many people are there that are like me, that are young, that make money? I mean, Miami happens to have a lot of different types of, Miami happens to be leading the world and in many different industries when it comes to income. And there are a lot of young people who are in these industries that are really making money. How many of those people aren't being serviced or served properly, or taken care of, or being taken seriously and really being able to recognize their dream just because someone else is jealous of their success? So I set out, first I did some hard money lending. I realized very quickly that I don't like being on the collections end of things. So I moved over to real estate. I got licensed, and I realized that the industry in Miami is really, really, really overdue for an upgrade in many, many, many different ways. So taking a lot of the things that I learned in the Army in terms of rigidity, in terms of discipline, in terms of I'll outwork anybody in the room, which is something that I really had before the Army as well, but the Army kind of sharpened it a lot. It took away that fear of being that person who outworks everybody. And I just went to work. Throughout that time, I ended up starting to work with a commercial investor. The commercial investor told me that they had their own management company, so I didn't even bring it up. But a week before closing, the investor calls me and says, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to close." And I'm like, "Whoa, yo, stop! This is the biggest deal of my career right here, right now. Like, why can't you close?" He's like, "I just fired my property manager," and I was like, "Hello, why didn't you tell me?" Meanwhile, I'm on sunbiz.com, right? And I'm filing Modern Day Management LLC. We're putting this in, got the whole company set up, and I started management. We did a great job. Again, systems, processes, operations. So he started referring his friends, and we started scaling. So the first version of Modern Day Management was at 590 units before I sold off the company. And that was again now in October. Flying back, I was liquidating everything I had just because I was like, you know what? Like, I'm here, I'm fighting this war. I don't know what's happening. Like, I needed more cash. I'm in this war hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'm very proud of the fact that I had the ability to do that. So, in building all of that, I ended up coming back, and now these same people are like, hey, okay, so right now we need liquidity, we need cash. And I was like, okay, well, let me find a broker who can help you. And then I started realizing that all these brokers are full of crap. No one knows what they're doing. Everyone's chasing a commission. Everybody wants 2.5 points and funding fees and I mean, okay, 2.5% is fair, but like, or 2% or 1% or whatever you negotiate is fair. I have to be very careful when we're talking about commissions right now, right? But at the same time, like, what are you worth? Like, what are you doing? Why can't I get a term sheet the same day that I talk to you? So I started reaching out to banks. I had relationships with banks already because as a property manager, remember, I'm paying mortgages, right? We're doing a W2, W9 white glove service stuff for all of our clients. So they're all over wherever they are in the world, traveling in France and the Alps or, wherever it is that they live. And we're just taking care of their properties for them. So I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of these bankers when you're talking about, $10+ million real estate loans that I'm making the monthly payments for. So leveraging those relationships, I'm like, guys, I have people who need money. Are y'all selling money? And they were like, well, we're always selling money. What's the deal? So I started learning more how to price them out, the background of property management in terms of running P&Ls, T36, underwriting properties, future building properties, figuring out as an operator how to shave off money on your annual income, on your annual expenses to increase your annual income. Things like adding washing machines, vending machines, stuff like that, admin fees, all that beautiful, gorgeous stuff that property managers don't tell other clients about, right? I learned all that stuff, learned how to do all that stuff, and then also built out those sub companies. So now when I'm talking to an investor, when I'm talking to a banker, it's like, dude, I own real estate, I pay loans, I know what insurance policies are, I know how to make insurance claims, I know how to do insurance claims, I've done insurance claims on my own properties, we know how to work with adjusters, we know how to really leverage everything that we have in order to be able to help our clients move forward. And the only way to be able to do that is to create a one-stop shop, a place that all my client has to do is send me a WhatsApp, a voice message, a text message, an email if they want to get super official, or a phone call if they're actually stressing out, and boom, it's all done, because then we just take care of all that through them. Obviously, when you provide that elevated level of service and you yourself have a certain standard for the way you operate, then, you're going to get some fugazis. It's just part of how it works, but those are people we refer out. And again, it's not because I don't want to work with you. It's just because we don't have the sufficient capacity or bandwidth to be able to support a client of your stature. So it's not that, so by packaging things that way, it really allows me to be able to identify what targets are targets that I can take down on my own, what targets I need to call in reinforcements for, and what targets I'm not calling until I have QRF 20 minutes out.
Money. I love that progression. Come back to Miami, you start looking for real estate, you get licensed, there's a challenge at closing, boom, opportunity. Now modern day management explodes. You start getting into the banking world, start understanding leverage. It's just so cool to see this journey of you since you went out there to coming back. But what I have seen is really like your leadership and your mentorship really explode. Because we could talk all day about like operations and opportunities you have leveraged in Miami. But what we're really noticing is the leadership and mentorship in real estate. And obviously we had the opportunity to work together at Real. And I've just seen you on this mission to grow, right? That tattoo you have to growth, but not only yourself, but others. And I think that's the best way in terms of selfless service is where you're giving back, and you're giving back the way you see is most effective, which is through growth. And I mean, one, you're walk it, talk it, right? You made elite, which is obviously a pretty big deal in what, 75 days? I mean, that's just rapid record-setting days. And you have grown your own coaching platform. You have grown your team not only in Florida but in the nation. So we gotta dive into that, because what advice are you going to give people who want to thrive in this market? Because we know the market's challenging, but you're not only winning, you're thriving. And so you're thriving in a lot of different aspects. So could you give some of that leadership and mentorship you've given others?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot. That's a very loaded question. Well, let's just take it from the top, right? First of all, just building off the non-negotiables that we spoke about before, right? The market is only an issue if you are a product of the market. So if you are trying to go whitewater rafting and you're in a raft, then yeah, 100%, then you're stuck. And that's what I think when people tell me, oh my God, the market, what's going on with the market? Like, you're in a whitewater raft, right? Dude, I'm on a lake or I'm on the ocean and I got 7 engines that each have 600 horsepower. Like, I'm in a sports boat. Like, I'm chilling. Why? Because we're so blessed in today's day and age that you can actually like buy a wave pool and make your own waves, right? Like, you don't gotta be like stuck, in the waves and the ups and downs. Like, yeah, I mean, listen, the people who are so proud about being in real estate for 25 years, what do they tell you? They tell you that you got to learn how to ride the waves, right? You got to list to last. It's like, dude, why do I got to learn how to ride the waves? I don't want to be here when the waves are here. I want to be in a different city, in a different state, enjoying sunshine. Like, why do I have to stick around for hurricane season, right? And when you sit and think about that for a second, you realize that whatever is happening outside your box, right? Anybody who knows what I'm talking about who's got kids, right? Like your box, right? That anybody who comes within that space, you scream right away. Why? Because it's a part of those non-negotiables that if you're gonna come at me with some bull about like, oh, the market, dude, no, you didn't make enough calls. Like, I make between 150 and 300 dials every single day to expired listings. I reach out to at least 10 people in my sphere of influence every single day. I send out an average of 15,000 mailers every single week out to our farm area, our just listed area, and places that we're geo-prospecting, right? So we're out there doing that stuff. I'm out there recording videos. I'm out there running ads. I'm out there, did I say cold calling? Yes. We send text messages. We door knock. We flyer. We send iBuyer letters to potential people who might be interested in selling their house. We host events. We get in front of clients. We're really just trying to we send a newsletter every single week to over 250,000 people. Like, we're doing things at a scale that even if you want to come at me with that stuff, all right, so you knocked me down over here, no problem, but we're still over here. It's kind of like the story of Jacob and Esau, right? Like, every time Esau looked up, he kept on seeing more stuff and more stuff and more stuff. For those of y'all who've been reading the Bible, right? Like, you got that stuff where, like, every time you look up, there's still more coming, right? But these are all mine. It's all stuff that I built. It's all energy that I put out. So don't sit here and tell me that you're struggling, because I'm going to outwork you like 10 to 1. So before you come at me and tell me that the market or I'm a product or I'm dealing with or I'm struggling or whatever it is, take a look inside yourself and tell me, what does your morning schedule look like? What are you doing? Are you getting to an office and smoking a bunch of cigarettes and drinking coffee and then sitting in front of a computer and then smoking a bunch of cigarettes and then drinking some more coffee and then eating some cookies and then trying to go find an open house that another agent, probably my office, has, and you want to go host it? Or are you like calling lenders and begging them to take you out to lunch so they can spend money with you on marketing? Like, my lenders pay for our marketing, not because we ask them to, but because they want to, because they're scared that we'll replace them. So they want to have something invested. So are you creating enough of yourself? Are you putting enough of yourself out there in a way that whether it's a buyer, a seller, an agent, a mentor, that somebody looking by would look at you through their professional glasses and say, wow, this person is professionally attractive. Yeah, that's a new term. You can use that. Professionally attractive, right? Because when you look at it from that angle, you start looking at it through those glasses, are these people doing the things that the profession demands for them to then be considered hot stuff, right? For them to be considered, wow, we want to go and court those people, right? We want to go and work with those people. Are you doing those things that make you shine out, that don't require anything that's not professional? It's really just a mutually beneficial relationship that is categorized by the definition of us both being on the same journey with a shared interest in massive growth.
I hope you guys are taking notes because I took some. One, I'm about to use buy your own wave pool. Forget swimming in the ocean. Just enjoy your own wave pool.
Yeah.
I love how you bring it back, right? Because so consistent, non-negotiables, right? And what's that saying? Like you really fall to your standards. So if your standards aren't high, imagine how you're going to fall. So that's a great reminder. And I love hearing it from obviously a youthful, spirited like yourself, do the work. And in this day and age, like discipline, accountability, work ethic, you could say those are offensive language to I think to certain employees, to certain people in the workforce. And it's really invigorating to really feel. I mean, you guys have to understand we're it's hot in here. And so that's amazing. But I also love that self-reflection you talk about, like really look at your schedule, like self-audit yourself. Are you really working? Like, are you truly investing in a brand and in a profession to where, like you said, are you professionally attractive? And I love that. And that's a great coin, especially in this day and age where it's so superficial. But if you take that superficialness and you really turn it to professionally attractive, it brings a whole sense to social media now. It brings a whole different sense to being a real estate agent. So that's really inspiring. So you have a lot of experience. You have a lot of different perspectives. And you've been through a lot. You have a lot of data points, a lot of challenges, opportunities. So what is your vision? Like, what's your goals? Because, I mean, it seems like you're still in that war. You're still in, not experimenting, but really experiencing the different kind of like growth in your own business. And I imagine there's an end state at the end of this. What is that?
Why does there have to be an end state?
Yeah.
Like,
why? Yeah. Why does there have to be?
If good is good, then better is better, right?
Uh-huh.
So I've never had a question phrased at me that way. I don't think that there needs to be an end goal in order to be successful. I very strongly believe that success is the realization of a worthy idea. That's what success is. And it's been philosophized on by many philosophers. And if you read, some of the stuff from, early aristocrats and early stoicists, right? And you learned a lot of what they share. Success it's a definition. It's another label that you can put when you introduce somebody on a stage and say, look, this man is successful. Like, great. What does that do for me? Right? What does that do for the person next to me? What does that do for that person's child's future? Like, how does that help? So the idea of reaching goals, right, in and of itself, it means that once you reach the goal, you're now going to have to identify something new that you're now going to fixate on. So I have an addictive personality, right? And as a child, it showed itself in alcohol, and then it was weed, and then it was, maybe a business that, wasn't taxable and things like that. And now I've been able to channel that addiction to improving the things around me. So today it can be selling a $20 million real estate deal, and tomorrow it can be helping a family out of eviction, and the day after that it can be buying a deal from somebody subject to because they made a mistake and they need to get out, and hopefully I can help them fix their credit. Like, it really depends on, yes, you have to be situational. You still have to be reactive, but you choose what you're going to react to. Because what you're doing is you're taking the action. I'm showing up and I'm saying, hey guys, I'm Joe. I'm here to help you achieve your real estate dreams and help you build financial success. That's what I'm here to help you do, right? That shows itself to real estate agents in terms of mentorship. It shows itself to buyers in terms of helping them buy their house. It shows to sellers in terms of helping them make as much money as possible. It turns to people around me because they know that if I'm successful and I am a person who likes to share my success and you know, I want to go and I want to build an organization to help homeless people, then homeless people want to know me too. Does that mean that I'm better than a homeless? I was homeless myself. So there's no real, people get stuck in all of these different labels when in reality it's a flow state. Today this is what I'm doing, tomorrow this is what I'm doing, and I do eventually want to be at a point that I can wake up in the morning and I can be like, babe, let's fire up the jet, let's go to France for breakfast, and let's go to Spain for dinner. Like, let's go have a great time. Or let's get on a helicopter and fly into the yacht and just disappear for 2 weeks. No one needs to know where we landed or where we're going. Like, these are things that are real. Like, you can do this. I know people who do this. Okay? I know people who don't need to work, but they work because they love what they do. So why not find an angle to fall in love with what you're doing? And it might not be in real estate. You might be listening to this and being like, listen, man, with guys like Joe out there, like, I don't know. And that's okay. But find what it is that gets you as fired up as I am right now and go and do that. Because that will never allow you to retire. The whole idea of retirement, end goal, future, settling down, that's for people with 401ks and 9 to 5, 40-hour death weeks. Like that's the way that whole mindset is. Over here, it's more about, okay, there's $1 million available. Great. Let's figure out how to go help 2 families by helping them get out of foreclosure. There's $5 million available. Awesome. Let's go find a property that's an eyesore to the whole community. Let's go talk to the city and figure out if the city wants to collaborate with us so we can beautify the city. So when you reframe these things of like, oh, these investors, they're money hungry. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, like this is how I feed my family. This is how I'm building my future. And I'm really good at it. So yeah, why not? But at the same time, think about your granddaughter who's now going to have affordable living, affordable housing because people like us are out here doing those things to make sure those prices don't go up. Because people like to live in the here and now. So when they're thinking about their retirement, it gives them something to wake up in the morning and say, oh, I hate my job. I hate what I'm doing. I hate being here. But guess what? In 38 and a half years from now, I'm not going to have to do this anymore. And not only that, my company is going to give me $20,000 when I retire. So now I have $20,000 that I can, what can I do with $20,000? You know what I'm saying? So like when you get to that point, you can't retire because you love what you're doing. And if you love what you're doing and you stop doing what you love what you're doing, then why would you want to stick around? Life gets boring. You need to do the things that get you excited. And it's okay for them to change so long as you actually finish the goal that you set out to do and you don't become a cop-out and say, oh, my passion changed. No, it didn't. You just suck. And you don't want to face it. And you don't want to invest in yourself to get better at your skills.
I feel like I'm in a coaching session. No, I love it. It's good that you took that angle right now. Because you're right, the industry sets like an end goal. The game's over. But why does the game have to be over if you're so passionate? Create a horizon so big that encompasses everyone. And so that's incredible. It definitely helped me bring some relief, to an old little military guy myself. But I love it because you feel at peace when you're in your passion and you created horizon, not only for yourself but for others. Because when you reach that destination, it's over. But that's not what drove you. What drove you is the passion. So, no, I love it. And I think that's an incredible way to segue. How can people get more of you?
Find me online. I share a lot of what we do.
Yes, you do.
I really try to stay active. It's not necessarily live and in the moment, but it's all me. So I post everything. We don't have any like ghost writing or anything. I publish a lot of videos. growwithmodernday.com/apply. That's how you can get in touch with more of our mentorship programs and see if you would qualify for that. We also have our team, which we're currently in 5 states. We're always looking to grow. We have a really, really unique compensation model that we've been able to build out with our company. It's so unique, matter of fact, that we can't even discuss it with people without, really making sure that they qualify. That's one of the agreements that we have with our company. And I think over the last month or so, we've been getting really, really good with actually being like super responsive to messages. I hired 4 more team members who their job really is to just help me be responsive to our communication. So feel free to shoot me a text, 929-842-3080. That's my cell phone number. If I don't reply within 24 hours, then send me a video. Okay, so send me a video text message. I send a lot of those, and usually what ends up happening when I send video text messages to people who stop replying to me, either I make them feel guilty that I'm putting in all this effort and they're just not being responsive, so they reply right away or they call me, or they reply back to me with a video, which shows me that they're even cooler, and then we end up kind of bridging the gap from there. So yeah, feel free to reach out, and if there's any way that I could be of help in any way, shape, or form, we're here for it.
And that's a wrap, man. First of all, let's give a round of applause to this man, Joe Brikman. First of all, I want to salute you because that was an incredible journey. Thanks for disclosing. Thanks for your service. Thanks for your grandfather's service. Thanks for all your comrades' service. So stay tuned for another exciting episode of Duty on the Real Estate. See you next time.